Today we're going to create an eye part using the middle valve block. And so what I've named my part here is eye valve block, meaning eye part valve block. All configurations will be consumed within this one part. So what I did was I created a block from this sketch, and you can see I'm showing my sketch, and I shared it because I used this sketch for the extrusion and all the holes on that face. Now, one thing that I want to show you about this, if I edit the feature, is that I make my material go away from the sketch, behind the sketch, so that I can see the sketch for later on. So if I bring this over here, you can see that this is the default. If I make it go behind the sketch, I can always see that sketch on top here for later holes. The next thing I did was I made the first set of clearance holes. So if you look on the amended plans, you'll see that I'm making this part right here as my first part. So I made that first set of holes, and then the next thing I did was I made the next hole. And the way that I separated those two was I right-clicked on this and I said Share Sketch, and it allowed it to be its own entity up here. And then whenever I wanted to make this hole and I edited the feature, I can add or subtract holes by holding down Control and selecting another point in the same sketch. Alright, so now we have, here's my menu. So I'm going to go ahead and say OK on that one. The next thing I did was I made that middle hole. Now on this hole right here, you're going to make this size. If you edit the feature, you're going to see that the size of that was a clearance hole for a number 2 screw. So you have to go onto your chart and say number 2 clearance, recommended clearance hole diameter is 0.106. Don't use his recommended 089. Then I made this hole as per what he said for us to do on the drawing. If I right click and show dimensions, I can see that that's a diameter of 0.281. If I resume the next feature, dragging the end of part down, you can see that I've created another sketch on this end down here, and if I make this visible, you can see that I have some differences in this. It didn't give me a dimension from the end, so what I did was I made a point at the midpoint of this entity, but I can make this line up horizontally. If I right click now and I show all constraints, I make this line up. So I'm going to delete this one, and I'm going to show you how I do that. I made a center line style by clicking this icon, and I make a line. Now it may be on the center mark, but it doesn't know where it is yet. So the way that I do that is I say I want these to be vertically lined up. I want this, let's say the end point of this, to be vertically lined up with the midpoint of that. Now it's totally dimensioned, except that it doesn't know how long it is or where it starts, where it finishes. Okay, those are the 3 dimensions that I need. So what I did here was I made these 2 points aren't dimensioned yet. I made them symmetric around that so that no matter how big this part is, they're always in the center. From the center, they're always 0.5 apart. So I made these 2 symmetric around this center mark. Alright, now the only thing that are needed is a dimension for the length of this line and where it needs to start from either end, and give it some arbitrary numbers, but everything's fully constrained now. Anytime you put a construction line in there, you need a full constraint as well. Say done and finish the sketch. So now you can see that I don't need to locate these because they're symmetrical about this, and no matter where this is, it's always in the middle of the part. Okay, now I'm going to pull down the end of the part to hole number 4, and hole number 4, if I go to its sketch, it's actually dimensioned from 2 sides, so you want to make sure you're dimensioning from the same sides of the part. And now we have our first part. I'm going to hide this first sketch. I shared the sketch because I used it between the holes and the protrusion. And I'm going to save the part as I valve block. Just save it.